Hi, and welcome to That's Ready Mysterious. Join me for an intriguing look into real-life mysteries. Who was the mad gasser of Mattoon? What was whaling at the Wilga Waterhole? I'm not going to solve those mysteries, but they'll be interesting to learn about. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. Transcripts and references for all episodes can be found at that'sreadymysterious.wordpress.com. No apostrophe and no exclamation point. Today's tale is about John Doe Boyd. They searched for a mother and they searched for a father, and they searched till they searched no more. The doctors put to rest their scientific test, and they named me John Doe number 24. And they all shook their heads in pity for a world so silent and dark. Well, there's no doubt that life's a mystery, but so too is the human heart, sings Mary Carpenter in her song John Doe number 24. In the early morning hours of October 11th, 1945, in Jacksonville, Illinois, a black, tall, deaf teenager who was unable to speak was found roaming the streets by two police officers. He had black or brown hair and brown eyes. He carried no identification, and police were unable to find any information about him or his relatives. According to the police report, John Doe number 24 had the name George Dunkley written on his vest. No one by that name was ever reported missing, so the teenager must have gotten the vest from someone else. The teenager was put before a judge who labeled him feeble-minded and ordered him to spend the rest of his life in mental institutions. Unable to communicate, John Doe number 24 was sent to Lincoln State School and Colony in Lincoln, Illinois. The people who worked with him later in his life said that he was much more intelligent than the court gave him credit for. John Doe number 24, so named because he was the 24th unidentified man to enter the state's mental health institution, often wore a straw hat and carried a backpack filled with glasses, rings, and silverware. John Doe number 24 was incarcerated in the mental health system for 30 years. During that time, he endured beatings and dehumanization. He survived hunger and overcrowding. Despite his hardships, John Doe number 24 made friends, had a sense of humor, and took on responsibilities when he could. In 1978, the nursing home he was living in assisted him in changing his name to John Doe Boyd so that he could begin collecting Social Security insurance. In 1978, after having been transferred around to different facilities, John Doe Boyd was sent to live out the rest of his days at Smiley Living Center in Peoria, Illinois. By this time, he was beginning to lose his sight, either from diabetes or from the abuse he suffered in the mental health system. He had suffered all of the abuse, hunger, overcrowding, and dehumanizing treatment typical of mental health institutions in the U.S. in the 1950s. Despite losing his sight, John Doe Boyd maintained his uplifting spirit. He continued to make friends and take on responsibilities and kept his sense of humor. In August of 1993, John Doe Boyd underwent surgery for colon cancer. Afterward, he had trouble eating and became depressed, and he was transferred to Sharon Oaks Nursing Home. John Doe Boyd died at Sharon Oaks Nursing Home in Peoria, Illinois on November 28, 1993, just 3 months after his surgery. He had had a stroke that killed him. John Doe Boyd was believed to have been about 64 years old at the time of his death. John Doe Boyd went to his grave without anyone knowing his true identity. The only clues he ever gave were scrawling the name Lewis and, as the New York Times described, pantomiming wild accounts of foot-stomping and circus parades. It was believed the foot-stomping was part of pantomiming jazz bars. Because John Doe Boyd was discovered alive, no law enforcement agency is attempting to ascertain his identity. Glenn W. Miller, the nursing home administrator, said, "It's just sad to think that you could disappear and no one would miss you. You wonder how often that happens." Kim Cornwall, a caseworker on John Doe Boyd's case, said, "It was so obvious from what he pantomimed that he had quite a life at one time. Like a grandfather, he could probably tell funny stories. We just couldn't reach out enough to get them." After John Doe Boyd's death, journalist David Bakke wrote the book God Knows His Name, The True Story of John Doe number 24. Mary Carpenter heard his story and wrote the song John Doe number 24 for her 1994 album Stones in the Road. She also paid for a headstone to mark his grave in Parkview Cemetery in Peoria, Illinois. The headstone reads, John Doe Boyd, unknown to 11/28/1993. Life's a mystery, but so too is the human heart. Who was John Doe Boyd really? When was he born? What kind of life did he lead before being found wandering the streets of Jacksonville, Illinois? What do you think? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. Thanks for listening to today's episode of That's Ready Mysterious. Join me next week for another captivating mystery.